Good evening. As stated, at the age of 36, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I found my lump as I traveled with my family for a birthday celebration to the island of St. Kitts. So when I noticed the lump, I concealed it from my family because I wanted everyone to have a good time. And I quickly came back home and embarked on the road of testing, just to make sure that the lump, in fact, was cancer. And to realize my worst fears, after a mammogram, sonogram, needle stick biopsy, it was determined that I, in fact, had breast cancer. So after learning the news, I had to break, the news to my family. I put on a brave face, and I put on my management hat and my CEO voice, and I said, I have a plan in effect, and everything is going to be all right. And everybody rallied around me, but I wanted to move off on my own, and just because I felt like I had to be strong for everybody else. And as I moved through my process, and I found a surgeon, and we decided that I needed to have an MRI, and I needed to have additional testing, and I needed to have additional biopsies. That strong facade just crumbled. And at that time, not only was I Assistant Executive Director at the North Hempstead Housing Authority, as mentioned, I was also a student, and I was also moonlighting as a promoter for a local dinner lounge. So I had a lot of hats that I was wearing, but I guess the hat that was calling me was the one as a casual churchgoer. And so my spirituality started to yearn for more. And I remembered that I sat in a service, and I heard a reverend talk about a peace that transcends all understanding. And I began to yearn for that peace. So I remember jumping out of the bed late one night and grabbing my Bible and opening the Bible, and as I opened the Bible, the first words that popped out was transgressions and sins and the wrath of God. And I closed the Bible, put it away. I said, let me get back out my old script and let me stick to my speech. I have a plan in effect, and I'm going to get through this. And so I put back on my brave facade, and I soldiered on. And a friend of mine, Marla, told me about a friend of hers who was a breast cancer survivor, and she suggested that I speak to her friend Kim. So within days, Kim called from Baltimore and said to me, how are you doing? And I said, oh, I have a plan, and everything's going to be all right. And she said, okay, so now really, how you doing? So I just broke down and just laid it all out, and told her, I'm concerned about, my daily activities, work, school, my family, all the typical concerns of someone newly diagnosed with cancer. But one thing that was different was that as the doctors were poking and everything else, right, they're probing you. They want to know, what is your medical history? What is your family history? So that opened up a wound. Well, I wouldn't even say it opened up. It just took the Band-Aid off a wound that hadn't healed. And so that wound was a strange relationship with my father. I hadn't spoken to him in some 20 years, and so when they started asking me about my medical history, I didn't know. I didn't have the full, complete story. And so that was one of the things that was weighing on me. And my mother had encouraged me to call my father and find out, but I was still in flux. And so I laid that burden on Kim on the phone, and she quickly, and I also laid the burden of my encounter with the Bible most recently. So she laughed and she says, okay, let me give you some verses. And she gave me some verses to look at and to meditate on. And one in particular that I can remember was Jeremiah 29:11. And that verse goes something like this. I know the plans that I have for you, the plans to prosper you and not to harm you, the plans to give you hope and a future. And I remember just meditating. And within days, I received a book from Kim called The Purpose-Driven Life. And I started working through that book. And I then realized that what I needed to do. I needed to, make sure that I was more than a casual churchgoer, that I needed to live a spiritual, worship-filled, purpose-driven life. And I realized that I needed to forgive myself, forgive my father, forgive others that had hurt me. And I picked up the phone and called my father and immediately, told him my news, and there was a reconciliation. So with that, I felt my load lift. I was able to now accept the love and the support that my family and my friends so desperately wanted to give me. So with that, I moved into chemo, and my family, friends were taking off days of work to come. My sister flew in, and it was just, the support was just outrageous. I moved through AC and moved into a different round of chemotherapy, and as it would happen, 1 in 1 million people have this severe reaction. Well, I was one of those 1 in 1 million people. So I ended up in anaphylactic shock, and I can remember, the experience of swelling up, and they were like taking my shoes off because my feet were so swollen, and I had to go to the by ambulance to the hospital. And I can remember my friend Marla, who accompanied me that particular day for the chemotherapy, looking at me and saying, you're gonna be all right. And I remember the words that Jeremiah 29:11, and immediately we just looked at each other, and I said, I must have looked like Eddie Murphy in The Nutty Professor when the antidote wore off. I said, I swole up, and she was like, oh gosh, and we just started laughing. And through my experience, that's what I learned to do. I learned to just enjoy even when it wasn't enjoyable. And, I just can remember completing chemo and going back to the doctor, having those tests. They run the marker test and everything. And Kim came from Baltimore some 6 months after just talking to her on the phone and having not met her. She flew up and attended that doctor's appointment with me. And I can remember feeling a bond with her that I had never felt before. And there is a lot to be said about survivors and how we can rally around each other and support each other. So that weekend while she was here, we attended church, and we decided one night was girls' night. We got all dressed up, and so of course I had no hair, no eyebrows, so they fixed me up in a wig and painted on some eyebrows, and we went to the show, and we were enjoying the concert. And I can remember Kim leaning in and saying, hey, Siela, let's go to the ladies' room. And I'm like, I don't have to go to the ladies' room. I'm good. I'm enjoying the music. She says, no, we need to go to the ladies' room. You have wiped off one of your eyebrows. So again, a moment of laughter. And there were many of those. And my friends and family made sure that I stayed upbeat, and I just moved through the process of chemo fairly well. There was a short time when I did have to be hospitalized, and because I had only been employed with North Hempstead Housing Authority for a short period of time, I was getting short on leave time. And these women that who are my friends and will be my friends for life, they came to my aid. They quickly donated leave time to me to make sure that that was one thing that I no longer had to worry about. And I know that they're out there somewhere. I can't see them without my glasses, but Maureen, Susan, Dolly, love you guys. Love you guys. So, as I moved through my process and I was able to, get through the radiation and everything else, I sat with some friends and we started talking about advocacy and supporting breast cancer initiatives, and we came up with a name of our group is WAC, because we are wacky, and so it's Women Against Cancer, and we hold events that bring single people together. So it's an auction event. We auction off single men and single women. And I'm happy to say that one of our couples actually got married. So everywhere we turn, there's a beautiful story. There's a joke, or there's beauty in surviving. And I encourage us all to continue to look for those moments. I believe that my cousins are also in the audience, Karen and Candace. I love you guys. You've supported me through so much. All the cooked meals and the laughs. I appreciate you. So in my current role as a legislator, I'm very happy to be able to support my legislative district by bringing educational seminars and also the mobile breast screening truck through the different legislative areas, and the truck will accept insurance, but the beauty of it is if you have no insurance, you can still have a screening. So it's been my joy, it's been my heart's joy to do that. I'd like to just acknowledge Lynn Poole and Edith Michiaz and Stephanie from Kavan Abrams' office, because we all work together in making those events happen for our constituents, both men and women who are interested in screening. Again, it's my pleasure to be here this evening, and I just enjoy celebrating with my fellow victors. And I'd like to give a special thank you to Adelphi, New York State statewide hotline for having me. Thank you.